back to KTN Sunday Night. It's time for Checkpoint. The intrigue surrounding the Makueni Senate by-election were above what anyone would have expected when the seat fell vacant following the death of Mutula Kilonzo. His son Mutula Jr. is now the new senator, inheriting a seat that his mother and sister had shown interest in. And while the Jubilee coalition argues that they already have the numbers in parliament and that the seat was of no consequence, is that really true? There have been agitations for fresh blood in the court leadership, and speculation has already begun as to whether Mutula Jr. may just be the first in a lineup of youthful faces court will need to remain competitive. And join me now to discuss this matter, Professor Edward Kisiangani to my far right, our resident political analyst. In the middle, we are joined today by social policy analyst Atieno Ndomo. Thank you for coming in. And of course, strategist Moses Kuria. Karibu to all of you. Atieno, I'd love to start with you. The intrigues of Makueni certainly had Kenyans, I think, shocked. The question one of Kathy Kilonzo's candidature and whether or not she was a registered voter, and how the entire process played out before that IEBC panel brought a lot of questions. One, into her own credibility as an individual, and two, also the credibility of CORD as a political outfit. Were they determined to do anything possible to gain that seat? Do you think they've damaged their reputation at all?
I think first just to say that the whole thing unfolded before the country, so it isn't, like this is something that is new, that I would have more wisdom to weigh on the issue than most Kenyans would have judged for themselves. But I think that for me, Makueni speaks a lot to the kind of politics that as a country we seem to, be degenerating into a level of politicking that is really not illuminating at any level. I think that it's tragic, the circumstances that led to the by-election, no doubt about that. I think that also as a country we have a history where, for instance, given the fact that the seat happened because of a death, we seem to have a trend where it's assumed that if a seat is vacated in that manner, then the family has the first order of preference. I don't know why we do that, but we seem to be accepting this in our political culture as something that is acceptable. And so therefore, then it becomes a very emotional matter. So that, for instance, saying anything negative about the family contesting the seat is almost as though you're being nasty. It's as though there is a kind of level of entitlement that it's a no-go zone area, which for me is a tragedy because it then denies the electoral process the opportunity, for instance, to give the electorate a real chance to choose. And so for issues to underpin the politics, I think there's no doubt that this was one of those elections where issues totally took a backseat. There were a lot of sideshows, in my view, a lot of intrigues that are not illuminating in any sense. But I think, again, as I said, for me, it speaks to the wider tone of our politics at the moment. There were disturbing gender dynamics, if you asked me. And I think that as people were interested in women's participation in leadership in this country, I would like for us to reflect and to ask the question whether women actually play politics by the rules of men in this country. Because in the scenario you just described, the people who went to court to question Kathy's eligibility were women, it would seem, if you think Dete and whoever else. And then on the other hand, you had Kathy's candidature being propped by a group of old men, primarily. So that in a sense, you want to ask yourself, whose candidate was she? Or what was her candidature about? And for me, they're very problematic gender dynamics.
Prof, what do you think her candidature was about? And including that, by the way, of Mutula Jr., who I hosted last week, just before the by-election, and said prior to this event, he didn't think he was going to join politics anytime soon.
I think the election provided a platform for a showdown. After the March 4th election, there was this showdown between the CORD and the Jubilee. And even before that, the problem of Kathy, only a small section of Jubilee believes that Kathy had questions to answer. I think Anne has asked a quintessential question that does it mar her image, public image? No. The public is trying to question institutions, including the judiciary, and some of the rulings that come out. Remember, the returning officer in Makueni declared that all the documents that were presented by Kathy were genuine. And if they were genuine, she has not been accused of carrying fake documents. So she's not on the doping list. So as a little section of Jubilee, who seem to have a lot of time not to fix corruption in this country. They have no time to fix road carnage. They have no time to fix the economy. They have enough time to talk about teachers and deny them salaries. But they have a lot of time to go to Makueni and even to block a young girl as Kathy not to stand for elections. This is a question of misplaced priorities within the Jubilee government, and there is a very huge chunk of the Kenyan population that does not agree with this kind of...
Moses, was Kathy blocked from participating in Jubilee, or do you think that the ruling was actually fair?
Of course she was blocked. She was blocked because she was not a registered voter. That's the point. I mean, Kathy has got, Professor, we cannot all be judges. And the High Court looked at this evidence and agreed with IEBC that Kathy was not a registered voter. She may have a very good chance in the next election, as we say that every sin has a future and every angel a past. So I'm not saying that I've got nothing but respect for Kathy's capabilities, but that IEBC went through a process on live television, and then this matter went to the High Court and appealed, and the High Court said, yes, we agree with the IEBC that... But
the same IEBC that cleared her to run in the first place.
And said she does not have fake documents.
No, look here. The returning officer in Makueni said that seemingly, I want you to underline that word, the documents presented were in order. They had not been subjected to scrutiny. When they were subjected to scrutiny, it was found, and Kathy had her time in court, a whole week in front of a soap opera to prove that she was a registered voter. She wasn't, and it was proven. Do you know, she went on another television and said that she voted on 4th of March. At the IEBC tribunal, she said she didn't vote. I think Kathy let herself down. And I think that you cannot always, what my friend Ahmed Nasir always calls a screensaver, that when a decision goes against you, it's unfair. That when it goes for you. Right now, if you look at what happens in Makueni, it was nothing but tyranny of numbers. I mean, Jubilee got what my younger friends would call kichapo. They really got a beating in Makueni. But if you look at it from the point of it, is that Mutura Kilonzo Jr. got 90% of the vote. Okay? If you look at what happened in 4th of March, Raila Odinga got 91% of the vote in Makueni. So 4th of March was not fair. But what happened this week was fair. I mean, we must stop this really. We must stop
I want changing facts. We'll get to his point, but Atieno, I want to come to you first because we've just mentioned IEBC and the fact that they cleared her and then went ahead to say the documents are not right. Do you think it has also further exposed just the problems that court has been talking about within IEBC and perhaps created a new platform for them to show Kenyans this is what we were talking about on March the 4th, and regardless of which side of the political divide you stand on, Kenyans should be worried about going to a next election with this IEBC?
I think there's no point mixing up issues. Nobody has any doubt that there are serious credibility questions around the electoral body. Now, we have to separate that from very specific issues as well. In my view, I think that I do not buy the victimhood being painted around Kathy Kilonzo. I don't know her, but just watching the way the thing unfolded, I do not buy that victimhood story. What I do believe happened, and is a plausible scenario, is that you have an opposition that is playing its politics around intrigues and is actually taking Kenyans as though they are fools. I refuse to be a fool. I want an alternative kind of politics. I want a different and better leadership, but I do not believe that that leadership is about creating scenarios that actually you can hardly scratch. I think that at the level of the individual, Kathy herself knows whether she was a registered voter or not. But the facts that as they emerged, and I know nothing else other than what I saw play out, look to me as though one could ask credible questions about whether she was registered or not. For many of us, if you didn't register, you know that you will not vote. You know that you will not stand for an election. I think that we cannot be taken on this kind of path. It's not the alternative that many people are looking for. And I think that many Kenyans can also see through it.
Atieno, you have taken sides in this matter, so you are not likely to make proper judgment. You cannot say that we have an opposition which organizes its politics around intrigues. What about government?
I can explain, and I'm not saying...
What about government? I just want you to listen to this. Quickly, Kaloki moves into the Jubilee wing. Then you have this mysterious lady called Agnes Ndetei suddenly having a lot of money to move in and out of court. And then there's a sudden interest from this government that they want to make sure that Kathy is fixed. Then, Mutula, other things come up, and then they start saying, they're going to block her the following day. They don't block. You don't see that as those as intrigues. I don't think this matter is the matter of the opposition alone. It is a matter that we have domesticated in our politics for a very long time. So you have to be fair to both sides. And by the way, let me tell you this. I have argued on this forum that there is no opposition. What we are talking about is a group of people who pose as Jubilee, and then a group of people who pose as what?
In my own defense, I mean, the fact that I outlined the opposition in this case is because the people who are painting themselves as victimized in this scenario is the opposition. And I'm not yet. And that's why I'm saying those of us who want alternative politics and alternative leadership, and that's why I'm pointing to the opposition, want something more credible. And that, for me, already speaks to the fact that I am dissatisfied with the government itself. But I'm saying hiding behind, for instance, the fact that the IEBC has many flaws, which everybody knows about. Instead of, for instance, proposing how else are they wanting to fix the IEBC. It's the same IEBC, we can now hear the same opposition quite happy with the outcome, because the outcome is what the outcome is. I'm just saying that those of us who actually want a bit more than this politics of rumors, of creating all manner of things, that sometimes you can actually see through it and you don't see that there is a problem.
Moses, let me bring you in, because we've talked about the opposition, but I want to talk about Jubilee, and they did not really go out there and actively campaign for the seat. We didn't see the bigwigs, if you like, showing up to show support for their various candidates. Do you think it was a missed opportunity for them to do what Atieno is saying, make this by-election one that is actually about issues, regardless of the fact that you think you're going to have a massive loss at the end of the day?
Well, I don't think so, because, if you look at Makueni as a county was actually called a stronghold. I don't think the people who went to court challenging eligibility of Kathy Kilonzo as a candidate were actually thinking about the actual outcome of the election. The minute we all agree to subject ourselves to the rule of law, to facts, to the issue of whether it is Mutula Kilonzo or Kaloki or Mwao who is going to win, are we following the due process of the law? Then,
but there's more to an election than just following due process. There are also the substantive issues of the people of Makueni, which I think we barely heard of. What we heard about was IEBC is doing this, Jubilee is taking us to court. And that's why I'm asking you, did IEBC miss the moral platform to, rather did Jubilee miss the platform to go out and say these are the issues
you
of
have
the
used
people?
And the word IEBC and Jubilee interchangeably.
And that's what
I hope you're not following. I hope you're not following on the.
I think Moses
Kalonzo Musyoka stupidity of assuming that.
Let me correct myself, Moses. This is what I am saying. Yeah. Do you think that Jubilee missed an opportunity to make this by-election about issues?
No, I think Jubilee, what they did was actually making this by-election to be about the rule of law. Because what you have seen consistently, since the rule of law. Shut up. Now, what you have
excuse me, Moses, will observe a certain decorum.
Yes, you can shut up.
I take complete exception to that.
Yeah.
Well, please do speak.
You say you apologize, but before you even say, you cannot tell me to shut up. There have been consistent efforts by some people within the Jubilee breaking the law. Now, when it comes to applying the law to the other side, you say this is following the rule of law. I think what should worry us, and especially for Moses, is to ask, why is it that the same number of people, there were people who were in different parties in March on the March election. One of them was Haron Mwao. Haron Mwao scored about 50,000 votes. But now this time he was below 10. What does that show you? Why is it that the Makueni people are not changing to embrace Jubilee? That is what Jubilee should worry about.
Moses, please.
Can I answer?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I think what you have to see is that it does not matter about the outcome of any particular election. Yeah? We have to instill a culture of accepting democratic results. Raila Odinga had 91% of the results. He won by 91. Forget about Mutula Kilonzo's 90%. He had more than that vote. So, in a particular constituency, you're going to find somebody being ahead and someone being behind, someone winning and someone losing. Can we all say that in this country, if you don't want to go back to violence that we witnessed 5 years ago, it's going to be realized once you accept that somebody is going to win and somebody is going to lose. If Kathy Kilonzo was the one who was validly registered as a voter. If Kathy Kilonzo had actually the right processes that she had followed, I mean, why would anyone have a problem with her candidature? And this is a problem you're finding here. Now people are saying that IEBC is very independent. IEBC did the right thing. I want to agree with my sister Atino Domo here. We still have issues to perfect around our electoral processes. Not about IEBC as an institution. We are only going to fix those issues once we stop this issue of being righteous, self-righteous. Once we stop assuming that
we must wind up.
If it comes from court, it's good. If it comes from anybody else, it's bad.
Absolutely, and I think you've made your point. As we really wind up, and your very final comments, there has been the feeling, of course, an agitation within court itself that they need fresh, young leadership. And Mutula Jr. has been touted as one such man that could possibly be up in the running to take cream positions to revitalize the party, if you like, ahead of the next election. Your final comments, Atieno, in terms of what you see as his political fortunes and the reinvention, perhaps, of CORD going further?
A comment linked to the first comment I made when I came to the show. I think that there are many Kenyans who would like our politics to be beyond, pedigree, or that people are politicians because they have a lot of money behind them, or that they have certain names. That there are a lot of Kenyans who would also like to be accepted as leaders in their own right, because perhaps they have an agenda for this country that goes beyond that they're so-and-so's child, or that they're so-and-so's wife or husband, or that they have money behind them or crookedness behind them. I don't know Mutula Jr., so I can't judge him. I just feel that the people of Makueni actually didn't really have an opportunity to choose very objectively, because the circumstances of the election itself sort of preclosed that possibility. And I think that's true for a lot of our politics. I think the politics is very base, and for a lot of people, perhaps, you actually withdraw from it because it isn't the kind of politics that you want to play that's underpinned by a certain ideology, by certain values, and things that make sense, that are not so much about intrigues and all sorts of things that are not very logical.
Professor?
I think the biggest worry is not even the fact that people are young or old, but whether they're capable of leadership or not. We do not know whether Mutula Kilonzo was ever interested in politics, and we don't know his leadership credentials. But the bottom line is that from Makueni, we see anger. And this anger is building, and it's across the country, that some people think that things are not going right. So instead of Jubilee trying to justify some of the things that it thinks are right or wrong, or do what Moses is doing in a state, in something which looks like activism, they must now say, how do we fix this anger? As a nation, we have a duty to fix it. We don't see any effort in Makueni, people trying to look at Jubilee with some favor. They are not looking at that. So if that is going to happen and replicated across the country, we shall first of all achieve two things. We shall get bad leaders, and again, the fact that the anger is going on, it will divide our people, and that is what Jubilee is not looking at.
Moses, please.
I have a lot of hope in the fact that Mutula Kilonzo Jr. is a senator-elect of Makueni. I think he has got a historical opportunity of actually eclipsing both Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka and emerging as the first issue-based leader that CORD might realize in a long time to come. Because as you do realize that CORD is actually a sinking ship, and I think
it's sinking.
And I think that
Jubilee is floating, but it's sinking now. CORD seems to be rising.
Okay,
please,
Professor,
allow Moses to make his point.
My patience is being set to the limit, but I have to finish this by saying that I think that actually Mutula Kilonzo Jr. is a better candidate, is a better leader, is a better actually somebody who can actually show direction to the CORD family, because if you look at the point of view that even CORD doesn't even have a shadow cabinet, like I said here last week, maybe Mutula Kilonzo might start coalescing the modern progressive forces within CORD to get rid of actually the analog leaders like Kalonzo Musyoka and Raila Odinga.
I thank you all for coming. It's very interesting to see where our politics is 4 months after an election. Already people are talking about the next general election and hardly about the issues. I thank you all. Moses Kuria, strategist. Atieno Ndomo, thank you so much for coming. She's a social policy analyst. I hope to host you again. And of course, our resident political analyst, Professor Edward Kisiangani. There's that handshake that I just wait for. We're taking a short break. I'll be back with the sports after these messages.